Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Untold Advantages of Private Cloud, your next IT move. Today's webinar is sponsored by Rackspace and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I am from Actual Tech Media, as you might have guessed, and I'm really thrilled to be your moderator for this special event today. But before we get to the content, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. All right, first of all, we love your questions and we encourage them. So put them in the questions box in your webinar control panel, which you should be able to see right in the middle of your screen there. Now, we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll go over some of the top questions that you submit. So make sure you keep submitting those questions all throughout the presentation today. Now, that Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might be experiencing. A browser refresh is the first thing you want to do if you have any problems seeing or hearing anything. And if that doesn't work, let us know in that Q&A section and we will provide further technical assistance. Up next, in the handouts section of your webinar control panel, which is right next to that questions tab, you'll find a number of valuable resources, starting with a Rackspace PDF on repatriating your workloads from public to private cloud. Other links there go to the Gorilla Guide Book Club, where you can get access to Actual Tech Media's huge library of books on a vast array of technology topics. There you'll also find a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events. Third, at the end of this webinar, we'll be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one of you. Now, you do have to be in attendance during the entire event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of the prize drawing can be found in the handout section. And finally, one of the best things about this event and all of our events is the opportunity to ask questions of our expert presenters. Now, to help encourage those questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. After the event's over, we'll look at all the questions that come in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. And with that, folks, why don't we get to the main attraction? It is my pleasure today to introduce you to our presenters, Josh Pruitt, Senior Vice President of Solution Engineering with Rackspace, and Sumanth Bhupalam, Product Manager for Private Cloud. Looks like you're both on and ready to go. You guys
Yes,
up for this today?
Oh yeah, ready to do it.
Excited.
Outstanding. Well, I'm going to open it up to you now. Josh, I think you're up first. You've got the mic. Take it away.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much, Keith. And thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited to have a chance to chat with everyone today. So we're talking about the untold advantages of private cloud and your next IT move, right? And so I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about how you should be thinking about, you hear all these buzzwords like digital transformation and app modernization and things like that come across. And there's always sort of this question of like, what does that really mean? What does it actually mean to go through digital transformation? And what does it mean to move to cloud? What's the difference between public and private cloud? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Encourage everybody to drop in your questions into the Q&A. Our goal is to leave about 20 minutes for Q&A here. And then I'll turn things over to Sumanth to go deeper into business continuity planning, disaster recovery, just really important topics for you to be considering. And of course, we'll take questions on those too. So let's jump straight in. So every business and every CIO and every tech leader has heard about this concept of digital transformation, what that means, and really any digital transformation or any IT changes that you're considering, whether that's moving to public cloud or private cloud or multi-cloud or hybrid cloud or any of that stuff. It all has to come down to driving business outcomes. It has to drive a business outcome, or why would you do it? You're not just doing it to, pad your LinkedIn profile to look cool. You're doing it to actually drive business outcomes and business results. And those can come in, from changing and improving customer experience or driving better business flexibility, getting some financial outcome, whether that's, better financial agility or lowering your overall operating costs, hardening your information security from like a business continuity and security perspective, or just in general, improving business resiliency. But every time we sit down to talk to a customer about, digital transformation and IT changes, we always want to bring it back to what's the actual business outcome that you're driving? Because so often, we see everybody moving to cloud. Cloud has been the explosion in the past decade that has driven so much of digital transformation. But what exactly is that? What is public cloud versus private cloud? It's been this explosion of cloud capabilities, this ability to have rapid tech innovation, the ability to have utility billed pricing, the ability to go and tap basically unlimited compute and storage at scale that has led to IT departments being able to make a shift into cloud to allow for these business transformations. But with anytime that a customer is or an IT professional is looking to move into cloud, there's always going to be the concerns that come with it. There's always the question of public cloud versus private cloud. And many of you are probably sitting here and you're already multi-cloud, whether it's by design or by default. Either somebody in your organization spun up an AWS or Azure or Google account, or you've got important applications running in servers, whether they're managed by you or in a co-location facility or in your own data center. You're already in multiple clouds, and with that comes a lot of complexity. So as companies are going through this digital transformation that's being powered by all the promises of cloud, you start to run into some issues. And some of the promises of public cloud, like AWS, Azure, GCP, some of those promises start to fall flat. For example, public clouds promise kind of that promise to have financial flexibility, and that you're going to get better costs and better resiliency and things that come with that. And in reality, a lot of times you get unexpected operational costs. You have that rogue developer or admin that spins up a crazy expensive server that nobody noticed was running for 3 months, and you get hit with the bill. The other thing that we see a lot of companies have to deal with is the scarcity of cloud talent, right? It can be really, really challenging to hire very smart architects and engineers in AWS, Azure, and GCP. And then you always run the risk of, if you train your own, then they leave you to go work for AWS, Azure, GCP, or somebody like Rackspace, where we provide the public cloud services to folks. And so that scarcity of cloud talent is another one of the kind of unintended consequences that we see folks have to deal with in moving to public cloud. Enormous complexity is one that kind of goes a bit without saying. Everyone talks about moving to public cloud and how great it's going to be, but they often miss that identity and access management becomes much harder to manage. And while you have all the great tools at your disposal, you really need to be well versed in how to run them and how to manage them, or you open yourself up to crazy high costs, or worse, security vulnerabilities and issues. Now, if you do architect the right way, if you do architect for AWS, Azure, GCP using all of their native services, so you go through that digital transformation, you break your application up into multiple microservices, and you're using Lambda functions and things like that, then you have the next problem, that's that risk of vendor lock-in, right? So if you go all in with AWS, Azure, GCP, then you might find yourself in that vendor lock-in space where it becomes hard to move. So that's why we recommend things like Terraform templates and other infrastructure as code that can help to abstract that away. So anytime that we're working with a company and we wanted to give everybody a view on how to think about this, it can't be as simple as saying, oh, you want digital transformation? Great, go to AWS, or great, go to Azure, or for that matter, great, go to Rackspace Private Cloud. It's not that simple. We recommend that everybody evaluate their workloads, evaluate all the applications that you're running. And we have a couple of tools like the one that you see on your screen now for how you can place those workloads. You need to think about things like, how mission critical is the workload? Is this a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 application for you? Is it a Sev1 incident if this application goes down? So think about the criticality, but you also have to think about where you're getting the application from. If it's, a commercial off-the-shelf software title that you're buying a license for and running on a virtual machine, you're you're really not going to get any benefits out of moving to public cloud, right? Because at the end of the day, all you're going to do is run that on another virtual machine. Maybe you're running it on an EC2 instance or an Azure instance somewhere, and you're not actually getting any benefits of modernizing an application. Because when people talk about modernizing an application, what they mean is you're breaking it down into the various components that make it up, so that you can run each of those components as its own service. And AWS and Azure provide those services to customers. But if all you're doing is taking the application that was running in a VMware environment that you're managing, and you're then taking it and dropping it onto a VM in AWS, you haven't modernized anything. You're just running another VM somewhere. It's just a VM somewhere else in somebody else's data center. And so these are the things that you've got to think about as you're evaluating all of your workloads. What's their criticality? What capability do you actually have to refactor and to change them? Or are they capable of being ran natively within the public cloud? So whenever you go through that exercise and you think about, all right, here's all of my applications, here's all of my workloads that I'm running, here's what their criticality is, here's what their ability to transform is, you end up realizing that some applications need to run in public cloud, or they need to run in a hosted private cloud, or they need to run at the edge, right? Maybe you have a lot of retail locations and you have a reason to run within that office or retail location, quarter rack stack, because you need something that is close to your consumer. Maybe you have high either low latency requirements, or you have the need to push a lot of data back and forth. And if that's the case, it doesn't make sense to send it over the wire every time you need it. And so you want it locally within each of those facilities. So that's what, as you're going through and you're evaluating each of those workloads, you need to consider where will this run best? And of course, these are things that, Rackspace, we'd love to help you with. So to put all of that onto a page, to say, what's the process to go through an app modernization exercise, or to go through, digital transformation, I'd summarize it in just this one slide that says, first and foremost, always start with what the business outcome is. Always start with what business outcome you're trying to achieve by making the change. Don't just do change for change's sake. Don't just make a change because your engineer in your organization or team thinks that it's cool new tech. That's not the reason to make technical decisions. You should make IT changes to drive business outcomes. Once you know what the business outcome is, actually understand what your workloads are, and then you start to select the architectural types. And you can modernize to the cloud, as opposed to doing a lift and shift of just moving everything into a vendor. It should be much more about workload specific decisions that get made, rather than a single vendor selection. That's not the right way to approach digital transformation. It's just by picking a vendor and dumping everything onto them. You actually have to modernize your applications to take advantage of everything that comes with it. And then the fifth step that you see on here is to manage and optimize. So across that full life cycle of a workload, you're going to have, if you think about, you have some workloads that you know that application, that software, that whatever it is that's running, you're going to need it for another 2-3 years, but then it's going to be deprecated. It's going to be replaced by something else. Maybe you're going to a SaaS application. Maybe, you're rebuilding something in-house, but you know that it's going to go away. And so you always have to monitor and manage that life cycle. And think about that as you're deciding where you should put these applications. So that's a bit about how Rackspace views cloud modernization. It's a bit of how you should think about what exactly this digital transformation buzzword talk is, and how you should think about it. I want to next cover some of the benefits that we see with running a private cloud. So if you think of AWS and Azure and GCP, all of those multi-tenant options as being a public cloud, think of a hosted private cloud as running a VMware or OpenStack or bare metal servers within a co-located facility, a data center that you don't own, you don't manage, you don't staff, but where it's managed by somebody like Rackspace. Some of the factors that we see that lead to folks wanting to buy a hosted private cloud is if you are maintaining an on-prem data center, you know the cost and the complexity that come with it. I tell folks that, man, running a data center is hard. It's tremendous overhead. It takes a lot of expertise. It is a ton of process, and it is a entirely thankless job until something happens at 3 a.m. and nothing works, and then everybody cares. But other than that, running a data center is a thankless job, and it's very, very expensive. So those of you who are doing this today, you know that. Data sovereignty and compliance is another big reason that we see folks choose a hosted private cloud. They have to maintain for regulatory compliance that they can't be in a multi-tenant environment, or they have to be in a specific region, a specific location, or a specific country. The shortage of infrastructure skills that you see in the top right is a huge one. Like I mentioned before, hiring AWS, Azure, and GCP architect level talent is extremely difficult and crazy expensive. And so this is something that we see folks run into all the time, is that they want to move to AWS or Azure or GCP, and they have, one or two experts in-house. Well, what happens when those one or two experts leave you, and then you're left running a platform that you can't run or you can't manage? And so we see this as a reason for a lot of folks that go to either a hosted private cloud with us, or they oftentimes they'll contract us to manage their AWS, Azure, or GCP environments. And last is just cloud security and control. So as different chief security officers and folks like that are evaluating their compliance and their sovereignty requirements for their applications and their data, this becomes a big thing for them. Do they have control over the environment, and can they meet all of the compliance regulations that come through? So from a private cloud perspective, one of the great things that comes with this is that you do have that enhanced security and compliance. You get greater control over, the data governance. You get greater control over where exactly it is. We can, put you in the country where you most need it. Predictable cost is a really big benefit to private cloud. This is one of the things that we see burn people the most in public cloud is, folks who make the jump all in on AWS or Azure. They just over months and years, they see that bill continue to creep up, and they don't really know why. And that lack of predictability in their cost structure is something that we see driving a lot of folks back to saying, hey, maybe I should look at a hosted private cloud. Maybe there's another way to do it. Data latency and gravity. So the concept of data gravity is really just that you want your data to be close to your compute so that you have the ability to use it, and also the fact that moving large amounts of data around can take a lot of time. It can be really costly. And so if ideally you want to have all of your data stored either close or very accessible to your compute power. And this is one of the things that AWS, Azure, and GCP collectively, the hyperscalers, have done really well. Is they are a bit like Hotel California. It's really easy to get in, but it's hard to get out. They don't charge you any fees to bring data in, but anytime that you need to use their bandwidth to go out, you end up paying significantly to transfer that data. We also see folks in our private cloud for legacy application support. Again, this goes to, if most of what you're running are commercial off-the-shelf titles, you are, leasing or you buy a license for some piece of software to run, and that's critical to your business. That is just running on a virtual machine or on a bare metal server, and you don't really get the benefits of cloud by moving that into AWS, Azure, or GCP and putting it onto their VMs. We've talked a lot about the lack of technical skills that come with moving to a public cloud. And some of the customizations and tailored solutions that private cloud can offer. This gets into folks that want to run, whether they're GPUs or high performance compute of another flavor. Maybe they have very significant storage needs and like data access needs. But if you do have those like technical specifications that require a specific hardware set, you can absolutely get that in private cloud that you can't really get in public cloud. From a scalability and data privacy perspective, you do gain a lot of the ability to still scale and pay for what you use with a hosted private cloud, as opposed to just going direct to a Dell or HP or Cisco and outlaying the capex to buy all the gear yourself. So this is a hosted private cloud is kind of that happy medium where you get the OpEx benefits of not having to outlay all the cash up front for all the hardware that you want to put into your own data center and run. So you get the predictable monthly cost without the big upfront bill, without the complexity and everything that's going to come with public cloud. And from a data privacy perspective, this is in the event of a breach, your data is isolated. We talked a lot about the compliance and the regulatory and the sovereign requirements that a lot of companies and customers do have. So from an overall private cloud perspective and like what Rackspace can offer you and your company, here it is in a simple stack, right? So Rackspace, we are experts in running data center compute, network, and storage. If you think about that as programmatic infrastructure that runs along the bottom, as I mentioned, running a data center is hard. Fortunately, we've been doing it for 25 years and we're really, really, really good at it. So we run the best data centers in the world and give access to compute, network, and storage at scale through APIs that allows you to build what you need to build. On top of that, you have that virtualization layer, right? And the two major players in virtualization and private cloud are VMware and OpenStack. For VMware, we're one of VMware's largest partners out there. I think that we're the second largest VMware shop in the world. And for OpenStack, we invented the thing, right? And so we're absolutely the best place in the world to run OpenStack because we have more experience there than anybody else. And both of these options give customers that ability to manage their own virtualization layer, get the benefits of cloud, get the benefits of virtual machines. On either a VMware or OpenStack platform. And then you add on to that, this is where we start getting into like that digital transformation. You add on to that Kubernetes or databases as a service so that you're not having to manage a MySQL or a Mongo database and have to manage the machines and patches and upgrades. We have services that you can apply that sit on top that you can just subscribe to a MongoDB instance without having to manage the actual infrastructure. All you do is just connect to it through a database connection string. Then you move further up the stack into like the private cloud solutions that we offer. So we have great relationships with Dell and NVIDIA to be able to provide AI capabilities for customers that are looking to either train or use the latest large language models. This is for companies that are getting into AI and they know that they're going to have long-term compute needs. It is vastly cheaper to go with a hosted private cloud, get the NVIDIA chips that way, lease them through that model, as opposed to an AWS, Azure, GCP, where you're paying the utility price for them. On the ERP front, most companies are running an SAP or Oracle infrastructure, and for folks that need help in managing that, using it, configuring it, we offer deep ERP services on both SAP and Oracle. In the healthcare space, we have solutions that are specifically designed for healthcare organizations, healthcare providers and payers. So hospitals, medical offices, folks like that. That even goes into Epic Systems application management. So Epic being the largest electronic medical record software company that's out there. We have infrastructure that is designed and built to run Epic appropriately. And then getting into sovereign and government. So we are FedRAMP moderate. So for folks that want to sell to or support the federal government in the United States, we have FedRAMP moderate capabilities so that you're able to do that. And then from a UK sovereign perspective, we also do quite a bit of business there as well. And so you have the ability to host something that requires that added level of compliance, added level of complexity. And of course, we do all of that with that purple bar across the top. We can provide either managed, professional, or security services across the entire stack. Lots of different ways that customers can choose to contract that with us. But the bottom line is that when a customer works with Rackspace, they are supported. We were founded with fanatical support 25 years ago, and it continues to be one of the mainstays of our company. So if that's our overall private cloud stack, let's talk a little bit about ransomware attacks. Let's talk about things that companies need to think about and need to worry about in 2023. And just a couple of headlines. Like the fact is that it's not a question of if you are going to be a target for ransomware. It's a question of when. And as you can see on here, this is really expensive. It's a big problem for companies and for IT leaders. The average ransom in 2023 was $1.5 million. And then on top of that, even if you do pay the ransom, you still have the recovery costs, and that's another $1.8 million, and that's before you get into all the lost revenue and downtime. I mean, for companies to recover from ransomware attacks, it's not something where you just click a button after you pay a ransom and it's fixed. You have to go through and sanitize all of your systems, make sure that you're not letting the bad actors back in. You have to make sure that you've notified and informed all of your customers. You lose out on revenue during that time. You lose out on credibility and trust. And so ransomware is something that every company needs to be thinking about, along with what their security posture is. And with that, I want to talk a bit about business continuity in general. And then I'm going to throw it over to Sumant to go deeper into some of the capabilities that Rackspace has. So from folks will call this BCDR, or business continuity and disaster recovery. The way to think about this is if you start there at the top with understanding that business impact analysis and risk assessment. This really comes down to a CIO or IT executive like yourself sitting down and truly having the conversation with your executive team of what is your risk tolerance. What is the business impact that you're willing to accept? And what are some of the things people will talk about, like return time to operations and restore point objectives. These are the things that you'll need to think about. And I oftentimes hear companies say, "Oh, well, we have zero tolerance." You can't say zero tolerance. That doesn't work, right? Because if nuclear Armageddon breaks out and Earth goes poof, then you're out of business. And I think most people are willing to accept that. And so somewhere between single point of failure, as in, the few millimeters of silicone running on that SSD disk over there, somewhere between that and the Earth going kaput needs to be your risk tolerance. And you should have that conversation internally to say, what is our risk tolerance? Are we, if a data center goes offline, what does that mean? If we lose, that rack of servers, if AWS goes down, if Azure goes down, what is our risk tolerance to, for a business continuity plan? And it becomes really important because you can architect for everything up to the Earth going kaput. I don't think anybody's doing, intergalactic or interstellar backups yet, but give it time, right? We'll have interplanetary backups, I'm sure. But you need to decide at what level of risk you're willing to accept. And then you start thinking about your recovery strategies. How long are you willing to be down? What is that restore point objective? If you lose a day's worth of data, does that kill you? If you lose 5 hours worth of data, does that kill you? What does it mean? And then you've got to start to document your recovery procedures. And this goes deep beyond just your VMware footprint. You've got to think about all of your SaaS applications that you have running, what their backup strategy is, how you would engage with them. Are you comfortable with their backup strategy, or do you need to put a process in place that downloads their backups regularly so that you store those somewhere? These are all the things that you've got to think about. Then you go and implement it, and you get to testing and acceptance, right? So this is the most important thing, because any business continuity plan that hasn't actually been tested is not a business continuity plan. You have to actually test your DR strategy and your plan to make sure that it works. And then, of course, continue to manage that plan, continue with the drills and testing, and it continue to evolve the process. So that's how we would recommend that you, as IT executives, think about business continuity and disaster recovery. If you're looking at this and thinking, "Gosh, we don't have a strategy around this," we'd love to talk with you. We'd love to help you figure that out and help you come up with a solution, because it is something that everyone should be thinking about and should have a strategy for. Okay, so with that, I want to turn things over to my buddy Sumant. Sumant's going to talk about Rackspace data protection and disaster recovery. Sumant, take it away.
Thanks, Josh. Hello, everyone. as Josh explained, like having a good strategy for our data protection and disaster recovery is a must. Now, we've talked to a lot of our partners, customers, and analysts, and we've reconciled it to make it really easy for all of the executives to come up and say, okay, how do we think about this? Where do we begin? What are our options? Now, if we boil it down, and this is across any cloud provider, any MSP, what we do it, we've done it. I'll go into that a little bit in detail as to how we can do a really good job. But what it boils down to are two options that we have. One is a data protection, and the second one is a disaster recovery. Now, let's talk about data protection first. As the name suggests, it's protecting data. But how do we do it? Well, it's a simplest way to think about this is point in time copies, right? So any storage array that it lives on, your data lives on, or any backup array that your data is going to get backed up to, you always have the option of creating a simple point in time copy. So generally, it's very cost effective because it's a snapshot or a clone effectively. Your retention could be same or different compared to where your production workload is running, but more often than not, your recovery is going to be at the same exact location as to where your production is. So again, it's a very cost-effective solution as opposed to DR. When we talk about DR, it actually involves a lot of components. I would actually say data protection is an element of disaster recovery, but how does disaster recovery happens? Like in the last slide, whatever Josh was going on, if we think about it, it's about coming up with a plan. It's more of a culture change where we are motivating people, we are improving our processes, and we have most importantly a good plan on how to get in front and be proactive in coming up with a disaster recovery plan, and make sure that it is in place and it actually executes really well when we have to execute it. So as you can probably imagine, it's generally more expensive because of obvious reasons such as cost intensive due to our operations, expertise, and also investing in a lot of storage, backup, and generally automation processes that would entail in an entire disaster recovery plan. So the retention location is definitely different from our production, and the recovery location is again definitely different compared to where our production is, because that's what a DR entails. Now, if we go about a little bit in detail, how Rackspace or what options do we provide today if you want to choose the most cost-effective option in for ransomware remediation? Well, how do we do it with respect to data protection? The first, on storage, we have what we call as crash consistent snapshots. Again, it's a snapshot. We have our production data. We're going to make a copy of this point in time copy of our production data and store it away for a rainy day. Is that the best thing that we can do? I would say argue and say no, because that is all on the one production array. Like it's on the same array. So if anything happens with the main production array, then it also affects our point in time copy. So it's not always the best solution to have. As opposed to another solution we have that we came up with is data logs. Now, data logs, the name might be very new, but what it is actually immutable copy of our data. Again, the immutability means once a copy is taken, no one would have the ability to change anything, neither would anyone have the ability to delete anything. So that is a clear-cut gold copy. Whenever we need it, it's always there to help us out. And especially in terms of ransomware remediation, that gold copy is as good as solid gold. We can go back and recover everything to that copy with all of our production data, and then hopefully that we have built in a good recovery plan where we are applying it and bringing our applications back online as soon as possible. Now, one thing is we recommend that this data protection through our data logs, which is immutability, should be top of every customer's list. That should be the primary source of protection. The reason how we do it here at Rackspace is it's powered by Cohesity. Again, it's a very cost-effective solution at 8 cents a gig, but it can do all of your VMware workloads, any of your bare metal workloads, even your hyperscalers. We can do it all, right? So it's a single customer portal, one software-defined solution across your multiple environments, and more importantly, it's a rapid recovery to reduce downtime. Again, when we go through it and do our business impact analysis, that's the first thing that's going to be important, is how exactly are we going to set up and configure our applications into what tier they fall, and depending on, most importantly, your monetary and reputational costs. That has to be the top priority. Once we have that, then you can always go ahead and segregate your applications into whichever aspect you believe that, okay, this is what these apps go into. These are my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4, and that's how you can segregate them, right? So we've made this ability for all of our customers to leverage, so that any of our backup infrastructure, if you wanted to have an immutable copy, it is always available to you at a very cost-effective price of 8 cents a gig, right? Again, if you don't want to do that, but say, hey, we would like to have an opportunity to do it on our storage arrays, then yes, we also do that across all of our storage offerings, be it block, be it file, our latest one, be it object, multi-tenant or dedicated. We have turned on the ability to take snapshots for all of your production data, and it is readily available for you to consume at any given point in time that you need. Now, with that being said about data protection, again, as I said at the beginning, data protection is important, but it's only an element of a higher plan, which is our disaster recovery. And this is where actually things get really interesting and super impressive with what we do here at Rackspace. First of all, we have a team which is an Elastic engineering team. That is the team that is going to come in once you sit down, have a discussion. They're going to hold your hand and help you understand, do that business impact analysis. And this is what we talked about it a couple of times, which is very important in understanding what are your applications, into what tier they fall, and what is the disaster recovery plan you would like to have around those applications. Now, the big thing about our SDDC, disaster recovery as a service solution, is that it simplifies a lot of problems that have been in the market because of our traditional DR or our cloud infrastructure as a service. Primarily, the expense it takes to maintain the environment, the expenses it would take to maintain the resources, the expertise you need from the architects to actually build a plan, and more importantly, to maintain the plan, patch it, manage it, and ultimately performance tune it so that it's ready whenever we need it, when there is an issue and we have to immediately pivot. Now, this is where our Elastic Engineering professional services team are experts. We have the automation capability. We will write the scripts, have it all ready to go, performance tune it, manage, maintain, chat with you as your applications are evolving every day. You would have to make sure that information gets across to our team, and then they would build in and upgrade our solutions so that whenever, if and when there is a disaster event, or there is an event that is going to take your production down and you need immediate assistance, this is when our team can actually jump in and help you do it. So it's not so much hope is not a strategy. That's what we would like to say commonly here at Rackspace, is that always plan, and be prepared. Whenever we need it, the best thing is you plan all we want. That's the first stage. But if it's not ready to go at the time when we need it, then there's no point in actually having a plan. So we would be more than happy for you all to reach out, and we would like you to sit down with our Elastic Engineering team and leaders, and we would want to go through that business impact analysis and actually walk you through what it would entail and how the service would actually help you in the event of a disaster recovery. Right. With that being said, that's more a little bit more in detail. Happy to take more questions. In the meantime, Josh, it's back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Suman. All right. So I've got
Josh,
one last slide here. Thank you. How about now?
Can't hear you.
All right. I think it might be the AV folks because I'm showing that I'm not muted. Riley or Keith, can you all help us out? All right, Keith says he can hear me, so I'm good to go. All right, so I want to cover this last slide to sort of wrap things up on just overall who's Rackspace? What do we do? Where can we help? So Rackspace Technology was founded in 1998. We started when web hosting and was just starting to be a thing, right? The like .com time. Then we moved into 2002 when we had managed hosting. And we sort of pioneered this concept of what managed hosting even was. We were early on the scenes with VMware as a hosted private cloud. And then we founded OpenStack, as I mentioned, in 2012 in partnership with NASA. From there, we've actually moved on into supporting AWS, Azure, and GCP. This was a really big pivot that we made as a company in 2017, 18, 19. Is we became one of the largest partners for AWS, Azure, and GCP. And so today, actually half of our business comes from supporting customers and their AWS, Azure, and GCP environments and providing the architects and engineers that are so tough to come by for those platforms. And so this is what really and truly has launched us into being a hybrid, multi-cloud, and AI solution provider for customers, is that we have our global reach of 29 plus data centers around the world. We have $3 billion in revenue as a company, so we can host all of everybody in our own private cloud. But we also have this very, very large business with AWS, Azure, and GCP, where we provide the expertise to those customers for running their public cloud environments. We operate in 120 countries globally. We've got over 6,000 employees. And as you can see, some of the awards that we have. And so really, our goal at Rackspace is to be your end-to-end trusted hybrid and multi-cloud provider, whether that's in a private cloud within one of our data centers, or if you just need support on Azure, AWS, or GCP, we're here to help you out. So that wraps up our prepared content, but I've seen some just fantastic questions come in on Q&A. So Keith, I'm going to throw it back over to you. We can jump on into Q&A. Keith?
Now you should be able to hear me too. Great presentation, Josh and Sumant. Fantastic stuff. I have a really important question for Josh, first of all. Is intergalactic backup on the Rackspace roadmap yet?
Right now it's scheduled for Q5 2000 never. So, we'll see.
Outstanding. We'll be looking forward to that. Okay, so let's dive in. You got a lot of questions coming in, some great stuff. Here's one of the first ones, and this is kind of a case study also. The attendee says, you are hitting all of our pain points. They tried on-prem, they got sold by public cloud advertising, and then dealing with the talent issues that, about hiring people, learning curves and expense. So scrambling is the norm for this company now. What they want to know, is it possible to have more peace of mind with private cloud without getting spun up in a new maelstrom, more stuff that they are going to have to learn? And so the follow-up, is there hope for certified nonprofits without a ton of corporate resources, i.e., money to spend and a lot of employees? So big question, big canvas here for you.
Yeah. So the very first thing I'd recommend here is take that view of your IT estate and understand what the objectives are that you're trying to solve. Like, is the ultimate goal, you mentioned, a certified nonprofit, is the ultimate goal run as leanly as possible? Is IT a true differentiator for your company? In the areas where it is, by all means, take those applications, break them down into microservices, get into containers, and do all the fun stuff that comes. But if IT isn't that core differentiator, if your IT system is not the thing that makes you better, different, et cetera, than your competitors, or however you look at that in the nonprofit space, if it's not that IT application that's that differentiator, it's not where you should be spending and investing a lot of your time and resources. You just need it to run, right? And so if you mentioned that you have gotten caught up in kind of the public cloud hype, and we see a ton of this. We see a lot of folks that moved from servers that were running just fine, or a VMware environment that was running just fine. They got sold on AWS, Azure, GCP hype. They said, I've got to go to public cloud. I got to do the next big thing. And they literally did what we would call a lift and shift. They moved their VMs from one place to AWS. They're still VMs. There's nothing special about them. They haven't been refactored in containers. They didn't write CloudFormation or Terraform templates to do infrastructure as code. Like, they didn't change anything. It's just a VM that is running software. And if that's the case, you've really got to evaluate why you did that. And this is where we see a lot of folks repatriating that back to say, like, look, I can run this in a bare metal or VMware environment with Rackspace where, I can sign a, 1, 2, 3 year contract, and I know exactly what I'm going to pay every month, every year for that. And the application is going to run just fine, because it's actually going to run better than it does on VMs sitting in AWS, because we have all of our data centers are architected to be dual power supply, dual cords down to the rack, all of that good stuff, as opposed to requiring that folks architect for failure, which is frankly what AWS, Azure, and GCP do. Is they expect you to architect for failure because you're supposed to set the redundancy up yourself. So I'll bring it all back home to, is there hope for folks that don't have that money, talent, et cetera? I would say, I think there's absolutely is hope. Don't get caught up in the hype of, wanting to do what, you think all the cool kids are doing, whether that's Kubernetes or digital transformation or serverless or whatever. Most people aren't doing that. Most people that are doing it aren't doing it well. There's absolutely nothing wrong with boring IT that works. And I think that you absolutely can get that out of a predictable hosted private cloud.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So there's a question kind of related to that also then, that either of you can take on. And this is about, the attendee asks, we don't pay as you go in private clouds. This seems to be the big promise from public clouds. They talk about not even understanding the charges. This is a common concern for anybody who works in public cloud. We all know this, which is why repatriation is such a big thing. So this boils down to this question. How is private cloud more transparent than public cloud pricing, and how it relates to the hidden costs? Now, Josh, you mentioned something about data egress. That's one of them. Do you have other examples of how what you're offering is more transparent?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I would actually argue, and I will defend the public clouds here. I would say that their pricing is transparent. It is just massively confusing. But I think that they absolutely have pricing pages and APIs that you can hit that says this is, we're going to charge you 1 cent per hour for your IP address, and we're going to charge you 10 cents per gig for every gig of data that you transfer out, and we're going to charge you this much for this and this much for this. The problem is that all of those costs all add up, right? And so to architect really well and to have your business continuity, disaster recovery, well, now you're paying for the image, and you're paying for the image storage, and you're paying to move the image, and you're paying to test the image on a new server, and so you're paying for all of these things. And it's I'll paraphrase Spider-Man here and say that, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And I would say that with the hyperscalers, with great power comes great complexity, and it can be really confusing. So specifically, right, you've got like egress fees is a big one that the public clouds hit you on, and Rackspace makes outbound bandwidth super simple. The vast majority of our customers pay $0 for outbound bandwidth because we just include a metric ton of it for customers out of the gate. So you won't have surprises there. And then we have what I would call really simple menu-based pricing for management of your environment. So say that you are running a VMware or an OpenStack environment that has a couple of hypervisors, fancy word for server, running a handful of virtual machines up on top of those. You can choose which of those virtual machines do you want Rackspace to manage. Do you want to have patching for it? Do you want to have antivirus for it? Do you want it to auto update? And it's a simple price, right? And you can turn it off and on, but it's a simple price for it. We're not going to, charge you for every single IP address that gets allocated. We're not going to charge you for, the number of API requests that come in. It's just simple and transparent pricing. One great example of this is on the storage front, where, you could compare a storage offer that we have to what Amazon would call S3 or object storage. And Amazon's going to charge you for every API request that comes in. They're going to charge you obviously for the storage. They're going to charge you for the bandwidth transfer. If you're taking advantage of things like Glacier to do life cycle management of that object, so you put it in like colder storage that's less accessible, they charge you to make the move. They charge you all these things, right? And with Rackspace, we say, hey, look, we're going to meet one of their lowest tiers of price. We're going to meet one of their cheapest tiers. We're not going to charge you for every request that comes through. We're not going to charge you for bandwidth. It is a simple, how much storage do you use? That's how much you pay. So that's another one of the examples. So yeah, I think that there's lots of cases where that hidden costs or the how easy it is to build servers or to use services can really rack up a customer's bill.
No doubt, and in a hurry. So a lot of sticker shock out there when when you're in public cloud. Okay, I think we have time to squeeze in like one more question. And before we do, I want to make one thing clear here. There's so many great questions coming in, and I'm sure that Rackspace will be following up for any questions that don't get answered during this event. So if you've asked a question and it hasn't been answered, have no fear. They will be getting back to you and give you all the information you could possibly desire in terms of that. So don't worry about any of that. Now here's for a final one here. This is something that I'm sure is very commonly asked of Rackspace, and it's a scenario that many people are familiar with. So the question is this, well, comment and then question. In order to operate a hybrid cloud environment effectively, organizations must adopt patterns and practices that are consistent across whatever platform best suits their applications and workloads, whether they're on premises, in a public cloud, or across multiple clouds. Here comes the question, how well does Rackspace Technology Cloud Solution support organizations concerning these issues?
Yeah, I'll be happy to jump in on that one. Samantha, I know that I've dominated some of the airtime. Do you want to take this one, or do you want me to go with it?
No, go ahead, Josh. I'll add if there's anything missing at the end.
Perfect. Sounds good. So, to the person who asked this question, you're exactly right. In order to operate in that hybrid cloud environment, organizations do have to adopt the patterns and practices that are consistent across their platform, right? And so one of the ways that we see folks doing this is through infrastructure as code with something like Terraform as creating templates for deploying an application or deploying VMs or things like that. What's cool about Terraform is that it is vendor agnostic. So like if you're using we would call this infrastructure as code, right? Like writing out your templates. Every vendor has their own specific one, right? Like AWS has what they would call cloud formations. Everybody has their own specific one, but there are shims or overlays that sit on top of that can speak those languages. And so like Terraform is one of those overlays. And so you can write a Terraform template, and then you can deploy that template to AWS, Azure, GCP, or to any VMware stack, or to any OpenStack stack for that matter, without having to rewrite it every single time. So that's one of the ways that you gain consistency across your multi-cloud environment to suit the applications. Now, you also talked about whether this is on-premise or in a public cloud or across multiple clouds, and how does Rackspace support and manage that. This is where I call out our multi-cloud, hybrid cloud capabilities that Rackspace has. So for example, if you are a customer with us and you have a private cloud running VMware in our Dallas data center, let's say, and then you also have an AWS account linked and an Azure account linked, and we're helping you to manage those. What we're going to do is we expose a single pane of glass that's going to show you things like user management, support tickets, billing, so that you'll have all of your bills consolidated in one place where you can see them all, and you only pay Rackspace as opposed to paying Azure and AWS and Rackspace. You can see everything there. You can do all your user management. But we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. And so when you want to manage your AWS environment, you just click a button in our portal that uses SSO to sign you into the AWS portal. So you're still using the AWS native portal or the Azure native portal, or for that matter, can sign you into vCloud Director or vCenter for managing your VMware environments. But all of your user management, your support tickets, your billing, all of that gets aggregated into a single portal and single panel where you just go through Rackspace for it.
Okay. Sumanth, anything to add to that, or was that answer so perfect that there's nothing else to say?
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. The Elastic engineering team that we actually talked about, now that is a good team that actually writes most of these scripts, whether it be automation or even helping our customers out with any questions they have. So that is a common question that we do get from our customers. Our workloads are spread across many different private or public clouds. So how do we consolidate them? And this is what we're here for. So please reach out and we will be more than happy to answer questions.
Great. Okay. One final question, and then we got to wrap this sucker up. And that is for all those who have been intrigued and had their interest piqued by this presentation and the information. For either or both of you, what is the next step that they should take? What should they do right after this event is over?
Right after this event is over. So look into the interplanetary and intergalactic backup. Joking aside, though, I do encourage everyone to take a hard look and a hard think about their business continuity and disaster recovery. Really understand what is driving their IT roadmap. Is it just cool IT that I want to play with, or is it driving a roadmap, or is it driving business outcomes, I should say? And most importantly, go over to Rackspace.com, fill out the form, open a chat with us, give us a call, let us help you. We love to send smart folks like Sumanth out to talk to customers, to understand their IT roadmap, understand what it is they're trying to solve for, and help them plan for the future and help them, to embark on this digital transformation. So reach out to us. We would love to work with you. We'd love to be part of the solution.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing to add, Keith. Yeah, if we want our customers attending the session today to take away one thing, is like Josh said, we all know ransomware attacks are coming. So let's be proactive. The best way we can do it is have a plan in place, sit down with our team, talk to them about, let's do a business impact analysis and let's see how best we can actually protect your applications and how best we can come up with a really good disaster recovery plan so that in the event of a ransomware attack, you're always prepared and you have all the answers before you get into that situation. So if there's one key takeaway, then I would say that.
It is definitely no longer a matter of if, but when. It's a cliche. You're going to be hit by ransomware. You might as well just assume and have the mindset that it is going to happen. And how are you going to be prepared for it when it happens? Josh and Sumanth, this has been so much fun today. I love learning about Rackspace, and thank you so much for your comments, your insights in the Q&A. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and with that, everyone, we are very close to done here. I wanted to point out you do have one more minute to download the Rackspace PDF in that handout section. Remember, that PDF is repatriating your workloads from public to private cloud. So before we're out of here today, download that and get going with Rackspace. Okay, we do have one more piece of business before I cut you loose right now, and that is our gift card giveaway. As I mentioned at the beginning, it's an Amazon gift card worth $250. As I also said, you do have to be present for the entire event, for any of our events, to be eligible for our gift cards or other prizes. And we do have a winner for today's event, and that winner is Laura Lepardis from Texas. Congratulations to you, Laura. We will be in touch ASAP to get you your card. And with that, everyone, we are wrapped. On behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Rackspace for making this event possible. I want to thank you, the attendees, for being here with us, for spending part of your day with us, for your interest, for your great questions. It's always a delight to be here with you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. That concludes the event. Now go forth and conquer.